We're at an early Christian hermitage here, dedicated to a saint called St Colman. He's believed to have lived here for 7 years. It's quite an extraordinary hermitage set in mature native woodland, and so go in and have a look. The great Irish folklorist, the late Maura MacNeill, she identified this site as a Lúnasa site, which means that even if the feast day of the Saint Colman MacDua, who's linked to the site, is at another time of year, the most important point of the year for celebration of his cult and pilgrimage here would have been around beginning of July, end of July, beginning of August. Lúnasa is the god of light. It's about Lu, the god of light, and he's associated with the harvest. He's a pagan god, and it was one of the four great pre-Christian agricultural festivals in Ireland. Lúnasa, Imbolc in February, Bealtaine in May, Lúnasa July, August, and then Samhain or Halloween in November, October, November. The one great outdoor communal one was Lúnasa Festival, and it's all about the celebration of the harvest, you know, relief and joy that the harvest was in, and communal celebration either at mountaintops or at holy well sites. So this is the holy well, and this is probably the central focus of ritual on pilgrimage, certainly in early Christian times. There's about 3,000 holy wells in Ireland, even more actually, about 3,200 at least documented, a vast number in a small island. And the idea is they're probably of pre-Christian origin, but most of them today are probably Christian. The whole idea of the holy well is that the water has the power to cure certain illnesses. Each holy well has an ailment attached to it. This particular one is meant to have cure for back and eye ailments. And the second thing, the water has the power, when you perform ritual at it in pilgrimage, to cure or to forgive you your sins. So if you like, you've got spiritual and medicinal well-being from the water. The idea that it's supernatural, it's no ordinary water in the landscape. And the well house here, the water that is supernatural is within the well house. It's a dry stone construction, and the water within there is the water that one would use for supernatural purposes. It would have been used a lot in the past. So there are some coins in there, so there is an element of this culture of reciprocal culture of you coming here to get things like forgiveness for sins and cure for your ailments, but the idea is you leave something behind, quid pro quo. So a few coins there, some tradition might be surviving to a limited extent. Also within the well house there's a couple of alcoves, and they would suggest that they were alcoves for the offerings in the past, kind of a formalised space for them. They lie pretty empty today now, and the focus of the offering seems to be more towards the trees. The other aspect of the water here is quite interesting, because the water's coming from probably the top of the mountain, quite an abundant amount of it at the moment, at the top of Slieve Carron, and it's making its way down past the well house. But it seems what happened here within the well house, according to a hydrologist who looked at it for me, that the bottom of the well house has been deepened, and that's to ensure that even if the water source dries up in the mountain, you still have a constant supply of water in the well house, that the holy well never runs dry, which of course is really important for them in terms of the sanctity of the space, but also it just shows that these people not only revered water spiritually, but they seem to have understood it hydrologically, so it's quite interesting. This is a man-made mini reservoir, this particular holy well. Others might be natural fountains coming out of rock or whatever, but this is a man-made mini reservoir, this particular holy well. Well, this particular site is it's on national park land, so it's been, I think there's an excellent conservation plan for it through the National Parks and Wildlife Service, but most of the holy wells would not be on, you know, state land. And it's fair to say that a lot of them now, because the majority of them, of the 3,200 or so, are probably neglected, you know. And also, it's fair to say also, I think that a lot of the lore related to them is dying with our elders. So it's kind of, it's a bit, and that's probably a, you know, part of the bigger picture of a lot of our folklore, kind of losing a lot of our folklore with the globalisation of society, and probably younger people not having the same motivation to preserve what's old as other generations did. This is a cave here, and it's known in Gaelic as Lava Colman MacDua, St Colman MacDua's bed. And the folk belief is, according to folk religion, this is where Colman MacDua, the monk, and his manservant lived for 7 years. The period would be about 600s, I believe. the idea of trees and, you know, stone and water having, you know, supernatural properties, it's widespread. It goes across cultures like you might have in India and Africa. So in the past, and again to a limited extent at some sites today, we have the phenomenon of the rag tree associated with holy wells. People would have taken a piece of their clothing, and that was the emblem of their sickness, their illness. We're talking about folk medicine here. And he would have tied it to the tree, and that piece of cloth, being the emblem of the sickness, was eventually taken away by the tree as the idea of the spirit, or the tree spiriting away your illness. You know, it's powerful folk belief. The origins of this idea of a tree having the power to, you know, spirit away illness, it's obscure. I don't think we are quite sure of the origins of it in place in Ireland. Probably, I'm being very careful here, has pre-Christian origins, but certainly there's nothing to correspond to this in Christianity. It's changed in a couple of ways. One, not only in terms of what people are tying to the tree, but perhaps their motives for doing so have changed as well. It's a highly divisive issue because we get a bit polarised about this, because some people regard this as tradition in the form of transition, but others regard this as litter. They think it's egocentricity, and they think it's contravening the Leave No Trace code of the countryside.
Come by the hill